It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. I'm telling you, I just maybe I'm romanticizing it, but I was such a huge fan of Mad Magazine when I was a kid, and then National Lampoon. And, then, you and I talk about the Babylon Bee all the time. And I mean, when you romanticize it, you think of, the romanticizing would be a bunch of people sitting around in a sort of a dirty office and, smoking cigarettes and whatever else they're smoking there.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking for Mad Magazine and National Lampoon. Probably not the same for the Babylon Bee since it's a Christian parody site.
Yeah.
But there's always that thing of coming up with a great headline or story and everybody around you just dying laughing.
Yeah, right.
It's sort of like how they have, not the content of, when I see the TMZ show on TV, where everybody's like gathering around talking, not that kind of stuff about Hollywood stuff, but writing all this parody and cynical stuff about, DC, Hollywood, and just everything. I just, to me, that would be just the greatest thing ever. And I was telling you when I saw one of the headlines of the Babylon Bee that this one headline, there is no Epstein client list, says Epstein's clients. But my favorite one, the whole controversy of the Superman movie that's out now.
Right.
And how the director
is coming out
this
week.
Yeah. And it's like, they're like, well, the director sort of destroyed that one by coming out and saying, of course it's political. It's about immigrants coming to the United States. Immigrants, what are you talking about? Oh, Superman. Okay, from another planet.
Right.
And, but of course it's political. And so there's been a lot of blowback on it. And then how the Babylon Bee, how they spin stuff is just...
It's brilliant.
It's just brilliant. And this one about the Superman movie and the director, James Gunn releases film about the importance of accepting morally upstanding white immigrants who speak perfect English. The film, an inspiring tale about a white immigrant who comes to the United States as a young boy, grows up to become a law-abiding citizen who stands up for strong American values in the face of rampant lawlessness, was set to premiere worldwide this weekend to audiences. It's the kind of story the world needs right now, the director said. I really wanted to capture how important it is for our society in America to prioritize allowing immigrants into the country who will immerse themselves into our American culture, learn English, and stand up for our laws. It's the perfect movie for the new America golden age.
Wow.
Oh, my.
No, it's just perfect. That could have, by the way, been somebody writing at National Review.
Yeah, could be. Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Basically in response to James Gunn. I could see Charles Cook or somebody writing that. That's how good they are over at the Babylon Bee.
They really are.
I mean, they get down to the point in the funniest way. And it's spot on. I mean, they're making the best points here.
This one. Iranian president worried this Tucker guy might be a little extreme.
Oh, my gosh.
And I maybe that's it. Maybe I romanticize it, sitting in that smoke-filled room, and it's not going to be smoke-filled anymore. That shows you how old I am.
A vape-filled room.
Vape-filled room.
Yeah.
And they still, all have alcohol problems.
Yeah,
And, but just incessant laughter.
Yeah.
Where someone goes, what do you think about
yeah.
what do you think about this one? You're like, no. And all of a sudden somebody comes up with just a great parody headline and you're dying laughing. And it's like, okay. And then you got to take parts of that headline and intersperse it within, to keep the theme going.
Yeah.
And then writing, because a lot of times for me, it was actually funny. I never even go past the headlines most of the time with the Babylon Bee because the headlines are so good. You're like, it can't get better.
Right.
And it was actually pretty good, the first couple of paragraphs of the one about Superman. It's like,
yeah. Well, it's so straight to the point. I mean, it just hands it back to Gunn in the most blunt, brutal fashion. You're saying you're promoting the virtues of a white immigrant who speaks perfect English.
Right. That's a shot back.
That's just
right.
That lands back at James Gunn's feet.
Right.
And sorry, you can't do anything with it. There's no way to respond. The Babylon Bee just defeated James Gunn.
Yeah.
I mean, after James Gunn defeated his own premiere. Why? You know why? Because James Gunn thinks he's the one wearing the cape.
But even
he thinks he's the hero.
But even if you believe, well, that's the whole point. He's trying to virtue signal, and they're slapping him big time, going virtue signaling.
Right.
You're immigrants, a white guy who speaks perfect English,
right,
and believes in all American values,
right,
and wishes to immerse himself into the American society completely,
right, exactly.
So. Shut up, James Gunn.
And who promotes law and order.
Right.
Because think about it in the original storyline. The Henry Cavill version of Superman, there was a lot of negative feedback because Superman isn't supposed to kill. He's supposed to, gently put Lex Luthor or whoever the bad guy is at the moment down, set him down in prison and then go on about his way. But it was a more violent approach in that version of the film, right? But the storyline, the point being, the storyline is that Superman, even with the bad guys, well, he's just going to put you in prison. Ultimately, he's going to, tie your hands, and he's not going to let you get away with it. But he's for law and order. And James Gunn just stepped into it. I don't know why.
As someone said, don't say anything. It's Superman. Just let people, even if you have a message, don't destroy your own film.
Well,
by saying it's political because it's about immigration.
Well, I would think that for immigrants, that would be offensive. I would think that in what he's trying to do and who he thinks he's trying to stand up for, he's actually got it wrong. Again, the Babylon Bee pointing out the most obvious points in that regard, but thinking you're going to compare this fictional character when their story is they're not coming here, as a baby on a spaceship, and then they come here and because of our son get superpowers. What kind of delusional mindset do you have to have?
Well, from what I heard, Trump doesn't care.
Yeah.
He can't send him back to Krypton, so the Supreme Court approved that he could send him back to another planet.
Yeah, exactly. We're waiting on
Let's play this
Elon to finish out his thing with Mars and just send him back there. Doesn't have to be his planet.
Hey,
I don't even know where Krypton is.
James Gunn, is the Superman story really the Elon Musk story?
Right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! It was just when I read that, I was like, okay, I'm done for the week after after that. That's just such
because-
genius writing and such an own.
It really just hands it to James Gunn. Because it's a horrible move to begin with. It's our version of the Superman story. We think you're going to like it. We think it's a great movie to see in theaters. Come on out July 11th and see it. Blah, 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 blah. Of course it's political. Oh, here we go. And, you know, Warner is doing distribution on this. Remember, the Warner Group was the one saying, well, hold on a second. You know, we've got a problem with a number of things that are going on in movies that they were making and this Warner Group and their new acquisitions and all of that. Why in the world? I mean, not that they could keep, I guess, James Gunn from speaking on it, but you've got to be looking at this going, I can't believe we did it just days before the premiere.
I know.
People haven't even gotten paid to get the ticket yet. They're waiting on their paycheck to land so they can go spend it on oh, no thanks. I'll wait for when it shows up on whatever streaming in 2 weeks.
They're going to have Hollywood to get back is going to have all the actors in the movies and the directors sign an NDA.
Right, exactly.
You can't talk. No, we don't want any promotional appearances from any of our liberal actors or liberal directors.
Right.
We just want to do the movie, and we're going to put out the movie. We'll market it ourselves.
Because what you're doing is then you're saying that because it's just like the Bud Light thing. You know, when you talk about sitting down, that marketing person, she thought she was a hero by throwing their own customers under the proverbial bus. And ultimately, what she was doing was interjecting the brand into discussions, because when you talk about sitting down with someone having a beer, it's not about the beer, it's about the discussion. It's about hanging out with a friend or a family member, having a conversation. You interjected yourself into the conversation. And so in this case, what James Gunn is doing for many people is you need to basically endorse this movie by showing up to see it. You've given them a reason now not to do that. What a horrible move. That's a brainless move.
I know.
Now, it'll probably do well at the box office. Why would you want to do it anyway? Why in the world would you even want to do that? Now, if you made the movie about that and all of the script is about that, I've seen a couple of clips here and there on YouTube, you know, because it comes up in ads. It comes up in rotation in the algorithm. So they're ads, they're trailers for it. They're really not ads because I don't see ads, but the trailers for it, you know, come up and it's like, all right, I haven't heard any of the dialogue, any of the script. But if you centered the script around that, then, oh, okay, well, then that's what the movie is about. Thanks for the heads up on that. And I can choose whether or not I want to go see it based on your cause or whatever you're trying to promote. But when you're doing that, you're promoting your agenda, saying, I want people to come see this and basically endorse. It's not even check it out. It's, I want you to endorse this part of the agenda, my agenda. And the agenda thing doesn't work. And the Warner Group, by the way, they know this. They've coming in with their new acquisitions and what they've done with the company. They know this. They have to be shaking their heads here as to what kind of stupid move this is. But they don't care because people like James Gunn think that they really do think they're the creator. Sorry, dude.
You're not Superman.
You're not Superman, and you're not God.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Yeah, we've been concerned for weeks about the fact how quickly the West has dried out this year.
And USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says the lack of rain combined with extreme heat and drying fuels has increased wildfire concerns for much of the West.
And for the remainder of this week, we will be watching a combination of factors leading to an enhanced threat of wildfire activity.
Potential dry thunderstorm activity and lightning strikes in the inland Pacific Northwest and Great Basin. Meanwhile, triple-digit temperatures will impact locales such as the desert Southwest and Central Basin of California.
So that heat, low humidity levels, gusty winds, and dry lightning all contributing to an increased threat of wildfire activity.
With western wildfire activity picking up in recent days, highlighted by the Madre Fire in California, which has consumed over 80,000 acres to date. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. This is a really interesting story. The Internal Revenue Service said Monday in court documents that churches should be permitted to endorse political candidates. The move creates an exemption linked to a ban on political activity when it comes to nonprofits. New York Times first reported this story. The ban, known as the Johnson Amendment, got its name from President Lyndon Johnson. In 2012, Breitbart News reported that churches endorsing political candidates violated a federal statute, but the statute was unconstitutional. The report also said Johnson was an extreme liberal and who shoved the United States further to the left. It'll be interesting. Now, I did see here, I went to this liberal one X site that said breaking the IRS just said churches can. That's not what I believe the story said. It said they should be able to support candidates. And then the liberal outlet has this church, and it says, God bless Trump. I stand with Trump 2024. And, of course, there's a church with a cross on it.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating because this really became an issue when you think about it over the last 30 years. Where you had, because you and I covered it many times, happened a lot during Obama, where you had traditional black churches come out and outright endorse a candidate. And it was the right who was saying, wait a minute, that's against the law. You can't do that. You and I at the time said it may be the law, but it's unconstitutional.
Right.
And we said that. That's one of the problems I have with the income tax. The government should not be able to, the federal income tax should not be able to say, okay, you have nonprofit status, and therefore you lose your free speech rights.
Right.
You don't lose free speech rights.
No.
You can't lose free speech rights because the government has created a particular tax system, just like you don't lose. Yeah, and I can hear it now. But churches aren't people. No, but the people that run the churches are people.
Right.
It's the same dumb argument about corporations. Corporations aren't people. No, but the people who run the corporations are people, and they don't lose their free speech rights because the government has set up the state has set up a business infrastructure that you can choose to be in. And the same thing here, because of everybody either has to pay federal tax or not pay federal tax.
That's separate.
Right.
Whether they want to endorse or not, that's separate.
Yeah, and we were the ones back then defending the liberal black churches that were endorsing candidates, and we said no, that's bogus. It's wrong. You don't lose your free speech rights because the government wishes to set up a tax system or a corporation system of rules.
Right.
And it looks like the IRS under Trump agrees with it, but it didn't. The left is trying to make it sound like this started with the right now because it's Trump wanting it. This issue really came to the forefront because of the traditional liberal black churches.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yeah, so that the story out there where the IRS has come out and said that churches should be able to endorse political candidates. And as we said, this first started as an issue, and it would be interesting to see if the left, and because this is where it all started, where it really came and was publicized was black churches endorsing candidates.
Mm-hmm.
And we said at the time, because the accusation came, well, wait a minute, that's against the law. And it came from the right that said it. You're violating the law by doing this. And we said, yeah, there may be a law that exists, but the law is unconstitutional.
Yeah,
because the
right.
government sets up a tax structure does not mean that if you enter into either of those structures, which would be profit or nonprofit, that you lose your constitutional right of free speech.
Mm-hmm.
Then it accelerated again after the whole Lois Lerner debacle, which we said that's the problem with having an income tax, is then a bunch of bureaucrats are deciding whether you get a nonprofit status. And the reason that they were delaying their nonprofit status was because they were fiscal conservative groups out there. Mm-hmm. And so they were holding up the permit process so they could become nonprofit. That's one of the reasons you and I have always believed that it's got to be some type of sales tax.
Right.
Because you use it. Number one, the income tax is a way for the government to basically have a blueprint of your life.
Yeah.
And what you do.
Right.
And there's no business to have a tax system like that.
Right.
The income tax also has created, as we've seen, a system that can take away your constitutional rights should you choose to be in a particular system created by government. You don't give up your rights because you enter into a tax system or a corporate system of rules and regulations that are set up by the state.
Right.
And, that was the whole thing with McCain-Feingold. And even Josh Hawley is pushing that unconstitutional measure where he believes, well, groups should have free speech, but corporations shouldn't.
Right.
I don't know where these people, and I said this to Russ Feingold, and I said, what type of arrogant person believes that you can set yourself up in the government? I said this to him when I worked at KXL in Portland, Oregon, our great affiliate there. I said, what type of arrogance do you have to have? Well, he was furious at me. For you to believe that you can jump into government and take away somebody's constitutional right because they decide to enter in to the rules and regulations that the state sets up to regulate corporations.
Right.
He didn't have an answer for me. Nobody did. McCain, if I would have asked him, he wouldn't have had it either. They can't answer the question except corporations aren't people. No, but there are no corporations unless there's people.
Well, and the left went off and made it about money and made people think that it was only about major corporations. Josh Hawley's doing the same thing right now.
Yep. And he's absolutely wrong, and I guarantee he can't answer our question.
And by the
either.
way, it wouldn't matter whether it's large corporations or small corporations.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
No.
The same applies. You don't give up your right.
You have a right to appeal to the government for a redress of your grievances. And you get that through free speech rights and raising money to promote and market the beliefs that you have.
Yep.
And these people, these arrogant, it drives me crazy. It drives me nuts where these people get into government and they sit there on their high horse and they, for some reason, believe that they can take away people's constitutional rights, individual rights of free speech, because the government has set up an infrastructure of rules and regulations to regulate something, and then they sit there and go that they believe they're on some type of insane moral high ground. It
well,
infuriates me when they do
like
that.
there's an actual quid pro quo. Well, you're going to participate in this? Well, then you don't get to do this.
Right. No.
No.
One does not relate to the other
It
at
does
all.
not.
None.
Totally separate. You want to change the tax system. You want to change the system in terms of corporations, rules, regulations. You do that. You do that separately. You don't do it by stripping them of their rights.
No. And we've seen, like we saw with the Lois Lerner thing, we saw how, the left in that particular case, because that system was set up, would try to delay your right, because these were political groups that were set up. That they were set up to have free speech rights to market a certain issue.
Yeah.
And because they're nonprofit versus profit, the government saw it, the liberal government during Obama saw it as an opportunity to restrict or delay their free speech rights. No. Sorry. Meanwhile, former CIA Director John Brennan and former FBI Director James Comey are under criminal investigation for potential wrongdoing related to the Trump-Russia probe, including allegedly making false statements to Congress, Justice Department sources told Fox News Digital. CIA Director John Ratcliffe referred evidence of wrongdoing by Brennan to FBI Director Kash Patel for potential prosecution. Department of Justice sources told Fox News Digital. The sources said the referral was received and told Fox News Digital that a criminal investigation into Brennan was open and is underway. Department of Justice sources declined to provide further details. It is unclear at this point if the investigation spans beyond Brennan's alleged false statements to Congress. As for Comey, Department of Justice sources told Fox News Digital that an investigation into the former director is underway, but could not share details about what specifically is being probed. The full scope of the criminal investigations into Brennan and Comey is unclear, but two sources described the FBI's view of the duo's interactions as a, quote, conspiracy, end of quote, which could open up a wide range of potential prosecutorial options. I'll have to sit back and think of what possible crimes could be there. And again, it's speculation. It would be asking questions. If this because of this, if because of that.
If you think about how the special prosecutor came about when Comey was fired as FBI director, could it be related to the things that he did with information he gained at the FBI and took that to someone outside the FBI? I don't know.
Now, this is just off the top of my head. In July of 2016, the intelligence sources warned the White House, warned Obama, remember?
Mm-hmm.
The intelligence sources, that's the CIA, that Hillary Clinton was attempting to set up Donald Trump's campaign with falsehoods.
Right.
So the intelligence agencies knew about it.
Yep.
Comey knew about it. Obama knew about it.
Yep.
And then that's exactly what they ended up doing. Well, if they all knew about it, that's the beginning of the conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
Because then they all cooperated, and then we had the meeting in the White House, one of the meetings in the White House in January where they were all there to keep it going forward. They knew at the time that the dossier was bogus.
Right. Well, and, I mean, at how many points were they told that information? Remember the story of Nellie Orr, who was at Fusion GPS, and her husband, Bruce Orr, who was a top-level FBI agent. And basically the information being relayed between Nellie and Bruce, husband and wife, that something didn't add up. And even Bruce Orr kind of brought that up within the ranks, saying, yeah, we're not so sure we can trust this whole dossier thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yet that was ignored. how many things were ignored. Remember the two agents, that were working on the white paper thing with at the FBI, and that was ignored by leadership because they said, my gosh, whoever wrote this white paper thing is just over the top crazy. So it does happen. And we know that, according to everything we know about it so far, that they had all of these meetings, they came to certain conclusions, they knew there was nothing there, but they pursued it anyway.
What I always looked into, and I think Trump attempted a lawsuit because the money used to create the dossier was a campaign violation where the Hillary Clinton campaign was fined. You and I always ask the question, did it go beyond a civil violation because of everything that happened afterwards?
Right. Yeah.
Because this wasn't where you just redirected money that was campaign money to something else. You redirected you reclassified what the money was spent on because the money was spent to set up your political opponent with a complete falsehood.
Right.
And then you combine it that civil violation of using that money that went to Perkins Coie, then funneled to Fusion GPS, which then Christopher Steele, then the guy who actually wrote a bunch of the dossier, the Russia,
Iggy
Danchenko, really, which was the only Russia collusion.
Right,
in there.
a Russian national.
Right, a Russian national that the Democrats
ties to the
did,
Kremlin.
And former Russian intelligence.
Right.
That then the dossier went and was used to get the illegal warrant, the warrant against Carter Page.
Right.
And so can you tie that all into part of the conspiracy and everything else that went on in there, where it becomes more than that the civil violation led to everything else, including getting a bogus warrant when they knew, because remember the one FBI director changed what, remember they changed about, made it sound like Carter Page was actually an agent of another country, of Russia.
And he was an asset for the U.S.
He was an asset for the United States.
CIA asset, yes.
And so when you look at that and where the one FBI agent was actually charged with that.
Right.
And convicted of that.
Right.
Or I guess they plead guilty. I can't remember now.
I think it was a guilty plea.
And so
basically a slap on the wrist.
When you combine all that, does that create the start of a conspiracy?
Right.
I guess would be the question that I would go into.
Right. I mean, the question would be, how many possible laws would be broken in that entire process for both of them?
Yep.
Because these are just the actions we know about.
Yeah. that have been all documented in public documents. Right. There's no theory or conspiracy theory in there.
No.
Those are all documented to have happened.
Right. And that would be the question is that I would have, how many different crimes, because, at this point, again, it's just the FBI opening an investigation on each Brennan and Comey. All right. So then from there, what? Because look, you charge them, you're going to have to obviously have the goods. You're going to have the evidence in hand.
Well, okay, look, I promise that if we go back to the original intent, I promise Hillary will go to jail.
Yeah, exactly. There will be an indictment. Listen, no reasonable prosecutor would prosecute a former CIA director or former FBI director.
Since the money to start the whole thing came from Hillary, nothing else would have happened if Hillary hadn't done that. Then she goes to jail.
Is she going to provide bail money for Brennan and Comey? If that comes down to that.
Jail her.
Lock her up.
Lock her up. That was it. Lock her up. That was it. 866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
In Tonight Radio, he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I know I saw Jim Jordan yesterday talking about, Republican Jim Jordan, talking about all options are on the table for a potential John Brennan perjury charge by his testimony
right.
to Congress. Right. We'll see.
I think, that's kind of a given. We kind of knew that maybe, that's lying to Congress, lying under oath. But then, again, I mean, you have to open up the door and think, my gosh, how many different, if the FBI is going to be looking at this, they have to be looking at a number of different things that possibly laws that could have been broken.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.